Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is Maseches Nedarim Yud Ches. We are holding 4 lines from the top of the Amud. We were discussing the possibility of accepting upon oneself a double Nazirus commitment. Nazirus Chal al Nazirus. So in contrast to a Shavua, where you can't double up. Once you're committed, you can't double commit to the same thing. By a Nazir, it's different. We have 2 approaches. Shmuel says, this allows one to accept Nazirus today and then accept again Nazirus on that same day. Hareini Nazir Hayoim, Hareini Nazir Hayoim. Both are activated. It's based on the pasuk. Nazir Lahazir is going to see in a minute. So you can accept upon yourself an expanded, double Nazirus, and of course, as the Ran explains, it doesn't mean that both are applicable at the same time. They're not concurrent, rather they're consecutive, which means that you observe 30, do the carbon, another 30 following that. Rav Huna disagrees. He maintains the only way to do the double Nazirus is Hareini Nazir Hayom, which activates a Nazirus starting today, and then he says Hareini Nazir Le'machar, starting tomorrow. So as long as the start date of Nazirus number 2 is offset by a day, that allows it to be Chal. Why? Because it has its own day at the end. Remember, Nazirus number 2 started a day later. So ultimately, it extends 1 day past the first Nazirus. So being that it has its own discernible day, unshared with the first Nazirus, that's called Kailal, you're including a new element in the second Nazirus. That allows the second commitment to manifest. And therefore, once again, he's chayiv both Nazirus. He does 30 and then another 30. But suppose he accepted them both by saying Hayom, Hareini Nazir Hayom, and then Hareini Nazir Hayom. Since there's no manifestation, there's no independent manifestation to the second Nazirus because they're both totally overlapping. According to Rav Huna, that doesn't work. Meisiv Rav Hamnuna, I have a kasha on Rav Huna. Nazir lahazir, that extra pasuk tells us Mekan Nazirus Chal al Nazirus. You can apply a Nazirus commitment on top of a previous Nazirus commitment. Why do I need a pasuk? Sheyachel, because perhaps Valedinhu, by way of a kal v'chomer, we should not allow this to work. The kal v'chomer from Shavua, Uma Shavua Chamura. Since even Shavua, which is more serious and strict than Nedarim. Why? We're going to see in a minute. So over there by Shavua, despite its strictness, Ein Shavua Chala al Shavua, one Shavua cannot land on the other. Once you're committed, it's over. You filled the space. Nazirus Kala Lakoshkin. Certainly Nazirus, which is less severe than Shavua, of course you cannot double them up. That's what I would think. That's why you need a pasuk. Talmud Leimar Nazir Lahazir. A duplicate lashon tells you Mekan Shanazirus Chalo al Hanazirus. Hey Chidami, let's analyze the price. What do you mean by double Nazirus? Ilema da Amar Hareini Nazir Hayom. Hareini Nazir Lamach. Suppose we go with Rav Huna's approach. One today and one starts tomorrow. Hakra Baya. Why do we even need a pasuk? It's self-evident. It's pashut. It's obvious that it works. The Ran explains because as long as the start day of Nazirus number 2 is offset by a day, it starts tomorrow and ends 1 day past Nazirus number 1, you have a manifestation, an independent reality to that second Nazirus. That's called Isur Koilel. You've included a new element, a new aspect, uncalled for by the first commitment. That allows the second one to be activated. You don't need a pasuk for this. So why then do we need a pasuk? Apparently it's not for this case. Elalat. So apparently, the Amar, we are speaking that he said as follows. Hareini Nazir Hayom, and then repeated. Hareini Nazir Hayom. And what does the Brisa say? It works. Ugatoni, and we say Nazirus Chal al Nazirus. That's a right to Shmuel against Rav Huna. Loi, says the Gemara B'mai was speaking in the following case. Kigon shekibel olav shtei nazirus bevasachas. What happened was he accepted upon himself a double Nazirus right then and there, simultaneously. I am Makabel 2 Nazirus. That's a different story. Because if he says Hareini Nazir Hayom and then repeats Hareini Nazir Hayom, that doesn't work according to Rav Huna. Once you're a Nazir, you can't re-accept new Nazirus. Only a non-Nazir can accept upon himself to become a Nazir, but you are already a Nazir on account of the first commitment. However, should he accept them both at the same time? So he's going sort of from a non-Nazir into a double Nazir at the same exact moment. A simultaneous double commitment works, and of course, as the Chazon Ish says, it's based on this pasuk, Nazir Lahazir, which allows this extended, expanded double Nazirus. So in this unique case, it works even according to Rav Huna. Now, one thing left to figure out is, why do we consider a shvuah more chomer than neder? Umay churma de shvuah min neder. In which way is a shvuah more strict and more severe, more powerful than a neder? Is it because shvuah has the ability to be applied even to something intangible? I will not sleep, I will not walk. Versus neder, which needs something tangible. Is that the chumrah? Well, guess what? We find an element by neder which is unfound by shvuah. Neder ram chomer mi shvuah. Neder is more strict in a way because sheken chal ala mitzvah. Kirishus, and neder can be applied even to a mitzvah. No sukkah, no lulav, as opposed to shvuah. So they're pretty much equals. Shvuah has something that neder doesn't have, and likewise, neder has something that shvuah does not. Elosh mishum dechsiv ba b'shvuah la'inaka. What's special about shvuah? The pasuk refers to it as something so severe that doesn't have any cleansing. Lo yanaka. Very difficult to get to shuvah on that. That's the chumrah, and that is the basis for our kavod chaymer, and therefore we need a pasuk to allow a double activation of a nazir. Okay, the Mishnah says when it comes to shvuah, you can't double up. Shvuah shalai eichal, shvuah shalai eichal, ve'achal, ein eichayev ela achas. Here comes a big chiddush. Amar Rava, although shvuah number 2 has nowhere to land, shvuah number 2 is not chal, but im nishal ala rishon. Suppose he goes to the chacham and undoes. He regrets accepting upon himself that first oath. He undoes it. He revokes it. He cancels it. Lima freya, retroactively, it was never there. So now, says Rava, guess what? Shniya chala, all of the second shvuah can come and land. Going forward. So although when he expressed both commitments, you can't have two shvuos. But the second one is sort of hovering, waiting to land. As soon as he removes the first one, he moves it out of that parking spot. The second one can park and lands on him. Mimai, how do you know this is true? I have a dig from the Mishnah. When the Mishnah describes this halacha, once you committed to a shvuah, you can't recommit. You're only obligated to one. It doesn't say Einoi ela achas. It's only one commitment. What does it say? Vektani Einoi chayav ela achas. He's only obligated. He's only in violation of one shavua if he eats what he wasn't supposed to eat. It's only one chiv, despite the fact there are two shavuos, which sounds like there are two shavuos, but you only chayav one. Says Rava, I have a dig from this Mishnah that the second one is there somewhat in potential. Rav Yehuda Kessler, he has no room to land. But once he removes the first one, chayla, the second one comes and lands and gets activated going forward. Lishna achrina, here comes an even greater chiddush. Chiyuva hudeleka. Once he commits to one shavua, you can't recommit to the same thing. There's no chiyuv for the second shavua. So let's say he has that, forbidden bread. He's only chayiv on account of the first shavua. Okay. So the second shavua is not active. Ha shavua ikka, but it's here. It's here. It's not just hovering. It's sort of landed already. It's not active, but it's real. It's tangible. So what's the point of mentioning this aspect? What halachic ramification is there to the presence of the second Shavuot if it's not active? Look at the Rava. As per Rava's other statement. Suppose he decides to revoke the first Shavuot. Suppose he made a Shavuot to eat something. Okay, and he ate it. And he makes a she'ela on that Shavuot, removes it. Also, so that achila that he did in fulfillment of that first Shavuot counts for the second Shavuot. So again, he made a Shavuot to eat, another Shavuot to eat the same thing. And he ate it. And then he removed the first Shavuot. He revoked it retroactively. Did he fulfill his second commitment? Yes. What do you mean the second Shavuot was not yet here? It was. Because the second Shavuot was waiting to be active, was here. It was present. It was not really active. But once he removed that first Shavuot, the second one is activated sort of retroactively. And therefore the fulfillment of that first Shavuot is considered a fulfillment of the second one. Perhaps we can have a riot to Rava. Misha Nadar Shnei Nezirus. This is the brayso we discussed yesterday. He accepts upon himself 2 Naziriyos. Hareini Nazir Hayom. Hareini Nazir Hayom. I'm going with Rav Huna's Shita. That only the first one gets activated. Right? Because Rav Huna holds in Hayom, the second one doesn't work at this point. Umano Hasarishon. He counted as 30 days. In fulfillment of Nazirus number 1. The first carbon, furthermore, he designated a carbon for the Nazirus. And then he decided he's regretting the whole procedure. So the first one is sort of revoked retroactively. Also, does he have to keep Nazirus again? Another 30? No. The 30 that he kept count towards the second commitment. That's a right to Rava's concept. Your fulfillment, your kiyum of that first Shavuot can be applied to the second one. Because once we remove that first one, you get it out of the way, and it's retroactive, because HaTorah's Chacham works limafreya, retroactively. So the second Shavuot was waiting at the sidelines. He was waiting. It's sort of like conditional. If I'm not going to step into the arena if the first one's there, but if it turns out the first one was not there, I'm right here. I'm active. So it turns out what he did for the first Shavuot really can be applied to the first Shavuot. That's a right to Rava's concept. Answers the Gemara, not so fast. Kegoin, perhaps this brayso is speaking about a unique case. Shekibel olav shtei nezirus bevas achas. He didn't say Hareini Nazir Hayom and then Hareini Nazir Hayom, in which case number 2 doesn't get activated. Rather, he went from a state of non-Nazir straight into a state of double Nazirus. I'm makabel upon myself a double Nazirus. As we explained before, that works. A simultaneous double commitment activates both of them. So of course in this case, although ideally you should be doing 30 and then another 30 for the sake of the second commitment, but the second commitment is right here. There's nothing missing. There are no additional steps that need to be taken to activate the second Nazirus. He's right to be chal on his own, without any additional measures. And therefore over here, if I revoke number 1, we consider the second one as though he's here and active, and therefore the fulfillment of the Nazirus, which was done for the sake of the first commitment, which is no longer a commitment, that can be applied to commitment number 2. But by Shavuot, it's different. Shavuot I will eat. Shavuot I will eat. That second Shavuot is totally inactive at this point. I'm already committed on account of the first one. I can't double commit. Now, although theoretically Shavuot number 2 can come into the arena, if I choose to revoke that first Shavuot and make room for number 2, that's mechusar masa. We're missing some steps. It's still, at arm's length. It's not yet tangible. It's not yet real. It didn't really manifest yet. Because Shavuot number 2 is a collision with Shavuot number 1. They can't both, coexist. So who's to say that in this case, if I decide to revoke number 1, we consider what you had done in fulfillment of number 1 as though you have done it for number 2? Who says you can apply it to number 2? Who says number 2 is able to sort of jump in its stead retroactively? So that we haven't proven. But that's Rabbi's Chiddush, and in fact the Ran says we paskin like that. So double Shavuot typically doesn't work, but if you are shoyel on number 1, number 2 gets activated retroactively, and whatever you have done for number 1 can be applied to number 2. Says the Mishnah. Stam Nedarim lahachmer. A person speaks ambiguously, something which can be interpreted 2 ways. When it comes to Nedarim, we are machmer. The Rosh says, you know why? A person's default position is silence. The fact that he's speaking indicates he's trying to create, he's trying to accomplish. So when he expresses a lashon neder, which can be interpreted as a yes neder or a non-neder, we interpret it positively. It is a neder. But of course, if he explains himself, he says, no, I had the other thing in mind. A non-neder expression in mind. Of course, we follow his dictates, and it's a non-neder. Keita, let's have some examples of expressions that can, lend to interpretations. Amar harei alayki basar maliach. This loaf of bread to me is like salted meat. Or he says ki yain nesach, like poured wine. 2 ways to understand. Im b'shel shamayim nader. Theoretically, if he had Hashem in mind, salted karbanos meat or wine on the mizbeach, also, of course, that's a davar hanader, which can form a basis for a further neder. Im b'shel avodas kachav nader. If he would have had avodah zara paraphernalia in mind, mutter, that's not a davar hanader. Of course, that would not serve as a basis for a neder. And therefore, since this expression can be interpreted both ways, v'im stam aser, if it wasn't explained, we just assume he meant the former, he meant davar hanader and it's aser. Here come another couple examples. Harei like cherem. This is like cherem. Well, 2 ways to understand. Im cherem shel shamayim aser. If he meant, Hashem's cherem by the kabayis donation, that's aser. Im cherem shel kayhanim. There's another form of cherem, a gift to the kayhanim. Then that's not davar hanader. Of course, that's mutter. V'im stam, if it's undefined, aser, we assume it's a neder. Another example. Harei like a maser. This food to me is like maser. Which maser? Im ke maser behem another. If you meant the 10th animal, which is a carbon, aser. Vim shel gern, if it's the maser taken off the granary, that's mutter. That's not davar hanader. We explained that the other day. It's something which just happened. It's not his neder. Vim stam, if it's unexplained, aser, we apply it as a neder. Another example. Harei like a truma. This food to me is like truma. Im ke truma salishka another. If you meant the coins from the machzas hashekel, that's aser. That's davar hanader. Vim shel gern, if it's a truma taken from the farm, mutter. Vim stam aser. Divrei Reb Meir. So according to Reb Meir, there's no differentiation in terms of locale. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, it depends where you live. Certain expressions mean different things in different places. Stam truma b'Yehuda asura. In Yehuda, which was near Yerushalayim, where they were familiar with the Trumas Halishka, we assume the term Truma is a reference to Trumas Halishka. It's a davar hanader. Begalul, muteris, you're living far away in Galul, then it's not. She'ein anshe Galul, makirin, as Trumas Halishka. People out there are not familiar with Trumas Halishka. They did not have that in mind. Likewise, when it comes to Cherem, depends where you live. Stam charam and Yehuda mutarin. Cherem in the Yehuda locale is mutar because the Kehanim would mill around there, and Stam Cherem means Cherem given to the Kehanim, which is not davar hanader. Begalul, if you live out in Galul, at a distance from Yehuda, where there are less Kehanim, they were less familiar with this concept of Truma of Cherem l'Kehanim, then the Lashon Cherem presumably means Cherem of Bedek Abayis, so we say it's Asurim, Shein Anshe Galul, Makirin, as Cherem Kehanim, because in Galul they're not familiar with the Cherem Kehanim, assuming, presumably when they say Cherem, it's a reference to Cherem of Bedek Abayis, and it's davar hanader. Okay, perhaps let's just leave the Gemara for the next daf because it's sort of the beginning of a new discussion. So we're back learning tomorrow's daf. Be'ezras Hashem tomorrow. So we learned about the difference between Shvuah and Neder. When it comes to Shavuah, you can't pile them up. You can't double up a Shavuah. When it comes to a neder like Nazirus, you can do so. Certainly if it was Bivas Achas, and even if it wasn't, well, according to Shmuel, Hareini Nazir Hayom, Hareini Nazir Hayom works based on Nazir Lahazar, that pasuk, whereas according to Rav Huna, that wouldn't work. The only way it would work is if it's Hareini Nazir Hayom, Hareini Nazir Lamachar, in which case the start dates are different, in which case the second one extends the day past the first, and that allows the second one to manifest. Even when it comes to Shvuah, Rav is Machadish, if you are shoyal on the first Shvuah, the second one lands, and according to the second Lashon, you can apply the fulfillment to the second Shvuah retroactively. And we learned that when it comes to Lushonos, which are ambiguous and unclear, if you've explained yourself, we follow that explanation, but otherwise, we assume you had a neder in mind, thus, Stam Nedarim Lahachmer. Be well and Hatzlacha Rabbah.